Hi all, good afternoon and welcome today for our session today, which is on MDDS and NDHB principles. So Krishan will be taking us through these two topics and we'll attend all your questions and feedback after the session ends. Thank you. Krishan, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Komal. And hi, everybody. My name is Krishan Bharadwaj, and I'm going to cover the topic on MDDS in today's session. So, one of the key challenges in achieving the goal of universal health coverage is to provide for information architecture for large and growing complexity of information needs of various service users, healthcare providers, hospitals, and for e-governance. So establishing nationwide metadata, data standards, and interoperability standards is one of the key steps in the endeavor to better manage this complexity. And from that perspective, MDDS committee was set up, and metadata for each data element for health domain was developed under MDDS. So metadata is basically the data about data. It include describing the data type, size, and formats for each data element, and it also describes the various data sets and the code directories for the health domain. So as the metadata and data standards initiative was taken by the Ministry of IT and Electronics Technology under National E-Governance Plan, and the intent was to promote the growth of e-governance within the country by establishing interoperability across e-governance applications for seamless sharing of data and services. So under the MDDS initiative, different domain-specific committees were set up under different ministries. And similarly, the health domain MDDS committee was one of such initiative, which was constituted in September 2012 under the chairmanship of Joint Secretary Policy in pursuance of Secretary Daiti. And National Health System Resource Center, NHSRC, was constituted as secretariat for this committee. Next slide, please. Okay. So the following are the terms of references for this committee. So one of the prime objective was to identify the different generic data elements, across the domains, and particularly in the health domain, which are common across all the e-governance applications, within the domain, as well as the different domains which are providing services under e-governance. So, for example, if you see the government Umang portal or any government application, you will find the similar formats for the patient name, a person name, even in the Aadhaar application or in the passport application, or even in any kind, like if you're registering the patient in ORS portal under AIMS, so you will find the similar format for the name of the person is being taken. And there are certain common elements like date, time, which are common across all the different government applications, whether it is Panchayati Raj application or health related application or police CCTNS portal. So the objective was to identify all such common data elements and define the format of these elements in terms of the size, type, or the acceptable set of values which these data elements can have, which we call as value sets. So ultimately, this all constitute the metadata of the elements, and the collection of the elements together of a domain, we call it as a conceptual domain of that a particular domain, basically that particular e-governance application or any private application. So the one of the main objective of this committee was to identify all such generic data elements in the health domain, and then to study all the global standards for standardizing the data and the metadata of these identified data elements, so that all these standards could be adopted by the India stakeholders, both in the public and private sector. And the methodologies were suggested to develop the custom standards or extension of global standards in Indian context wherever required, and to publish all these standards as part of the MDDS report. Yeah, next slide, please. Similarly, the another objective was to define the health data dictionary for the country. So MDDS report, you may say, as the first initial level of the health data dictionary, which is defined for India in healthcare, and that defined the mechanism to create and maintain repository of metadata of all the different common data elements under the health domain, and basically it also defined the mechanism of maintaining these registries and all these repositories by having license with government standards or NIC or NDHM or anybody who can maintain it. Then mechanisms were defined to ensure the enforcement of all these standards in the application being developed in health domain, both at the center and the state level, and to advise for identification of suitable testing methodology to ensure the conformance of all these standards in different government and private applications. So that were the prime objective that were laid down for the committee to work on. And the outcome of this committee's work was the MDDS report, which is available in public domain, and you may all please refer to it. Yeah. Next slide. So the digital journey in India, I would like to touch upon a little bit on that. So the first generation IT systems, which were across in the region, in the time period between 90s and 2005. So these were, quite simple IT systems. There were very low expectations about these systems. Not very sophisticated technologies were used. Most of the systems were client server, old Visual Basic based architecture, and even there were very low effectiveness and complexity of these applications. So some of the examples in government domain were malaria control applications or different state management information systems. We call it HMIS. 7 states had implemented that time, and some of the medical colleges, hospitals were also using some applications. So that was the beginning of the digital journey in healthcare in India. Yeah. Next slide. Then came across the second generation systems, and National Health Management Information Portal, we call it HMIS portal, was developed, which was a web portal, and it provides our data entry for all the aggregated data values across the states. So that portal was developed, that is primarily used by different states for inputting the aggregate level indicators for the different state health indicators. For example, the total maternal deaths occurred in the state, or number of women who have got the vaccinations, or the trimester visits they have got. All these kind of different indicators were developed, and this portal provided the placeholder for the entry of all such data. So you may say, like, this was the beginning of a little more sophistication being introduced in the healthcare applications. And then some of the systems were developed by different states, like the MCTS was one, which was mother and child tracking system, and different clinical establishment related applications were developed. Hospital information systems came across. So that was beginning of a more sophisticated level of technology started coming in the application side. Yeah. Next slide. So these are some of the positives of the second phase. As you can see, like now IT was realized as being a mandatory aspect in the health system management, and more complexity and more sophistication came in the design of these systems, and the expectations start accelerated, getting accelerated. For example, earlier systems, we used to have the district reports from around 600 in 2008. We had 600 districts over reporting, and then it increased to 5,000 block reports, to 2 lakh facility level in 2012, and then to 6 crore mothers and children covered in MCTS systems way forward. So that was an incremental growth of advancement and the complexity in terms of requirements that were developed in the applications, and the expectation actually grew. Yeah, and nowadays, we are developing the applications which are recording each and every health encounter of the patient. Yeah. Next slide. Yeah, can you move to next slide, please? So these are the practical challenges, came across when different systems were developed. So each and every state, had developed different programs and, program level applications and their own IT systems. So each state had around 10 to 30 systems developed. But, these were all silo systems. Each system had its own data dictionary. Each system had its own architecture. There was no semantic understanding. So basically, I will explain this word semantic, very soon. So there was no common meaning of data across these different applications, and that was one of the major challenge in getting any integrated and informed decision making for public management. That was not possible because each and every application had its own meaning of data, and there were challenges in integrating those data models. There was a very poor exchange model of exchanging the data across these applications, and most of the private sector applications were not participating in any kind of information exchange that time. So that was the kind of state most of the health IT systems had or even have to some extent. And MDDS is an attempt to answer the semantic problem and the interoperability problem. So MDDS report was the first one in the country which explained the different kind of interoperability patterns. And you may say safely that MDDS is a precursor. It defined the NEHA authority, which is the precursor of the modern NDHM, and it laid out various basic design principles which are now being followed by NDHM. Yeah. Next slide. So these are the third generation applications. 2012 onward, the systems developed and evolved from a merely IT system to a IT architecture, and there was a growing need felt to have the interoperability across the different applications. So nowadays, most of the IT vendors, the CIOs of the hospitals and the public policy makers, they realize that the system in silo cannot give you any benefit in terms of any informed decision making or any resource planning. You need the data from the different systems. A single system will not work it. So in public health particularly, there were challenges of having redundant data recording in different systems if system was not interoperating with other. If you have the interoperability set up between the system, then already the data which has been inputted in one system could be reused in the other system. So there was no need to again enter the same kind of data, and that would sort out a lot of the problems related to erroneous data entries, manually by the different data entry operators. Similarly, if you need a system to support the horizontally integrated decision making, you need an interoperability across the systems, not only within the domain but even across the domains. For example, you may need the integration with Aadhaar registry. You may need the integration with PAN databases. So you need to integrate with the different external databases also to get the identifiers and the different data sets. So that interoperability thing was realized in public health for the providers and patients. The continuity of care was a very important aspect that was realized by most of the hospital CIOs. And to improve the quality of care and enable the continuity of care, the patient should have provided the way to access his reports from anywhere. So wherever hospital he has got the treatment, he should be able to access his past medical records, and for that interoperability is needed. Similarly, for insurance payers, there is a need for the different payers to access the patient records during claim adjudication process. So interoperability is basically widely realized to be needed by the different stakeholders across the domain. Yeah, next slide. So there are three levels of interoperability, and each of this level I would cover briefly in this session. So the first, I will start with the semantic interoperability thing because MDDS primarily builds the semantic interoperability part. So by the term semantic interoperability, what we mean is, as I said, different applications are being designed by different vendors, and each vendor has their own architects who are developing these applications with their own data model thinking, there is no common dictionary, at that time. So what they were doing is they were defining the data formats in their own way. Somebody was taking gender code as M or F for male and female, but some other application, the data architects were designing the application like they were choosing one for male or two for female. So these were the very common thing. Or I give you one more example. For example, in one application, you are taking date as format like MMDDYYYY, and in another application, the architect choose DDMMYYYY as a date format. So the challenge related to this was when you were exchanging the data between these two applications. And suppose there is a date like 6/8/2020. So there was a difficulty in interpreting that date. What would it mean? Would it mean 6 August 2020, or would it mean 8 June 2020? So those kind of challenges in interpreting the data existed, and these were the major, these were the reasons for causing a lot of medical errors also sometimes. Because if you are wrongly interpreting the date, it can adversely impact your clinical outcome, your decision making. So those kind of issues are related to lack of a common meaning of data across different applications. So semantic interoperability address this part. So what semantic interoperability does is it provide a common, metadata meaning to all the different data models of different applications, and they can exchange their data with a common understanding of metadata of this data. So MDDS, committee has done this attempt. They have published a metadata of all the common data elements related to health domain, and the different vendors who are developing their IT systems, they can use the data elements and the metadata from this list, which is published in open domain, and they can design their application. So whenever they are exchanging their data with other application vendors, so they will have the same common meaning of data across the systems. So that part is called semantic interoperability. I will cover to syntactic and institutional interoperability as we are going to that part. Yeah. Next slide, please. So this was a process which was followed by the MDDS committee that time. So basically, consultation with a lot of key stakeholders were done, which included the representatives from Ministry of Health, NIC, CDAC, mission mode projects, directors, and the different international domain experts and the healthcare IT industry consultants were referred. So they were invited to the committee, and their thought processes were collected. And broadly, it was a consensus-based development of MDDS, not just a work done by a single committee, but a overall participation by the different industry stakeholders were invited in that. Similarly, a lot of international literature were reviewed, and a lot of global standards were referred to. For example, we referred the EHR standards, which is another standard notified in India, and we referred a lot of objectives which have been laid down in the 12th five-year plan that time, and public health IT system studies we did, and a lot of system manuals and guidelines were referred. And as a part of that, we brought the common knowledge out in developing the metadata standards in the committee. Similarly, a lot of terminology, global terminology standards were referred, like ICD or CPT or SNOMAD. And the prime objective was to bring the open source standards as much as possible, because this is a mighty policy in India to bring open standards. So mostly the committee recommended the open source standards for all the terminologies. Similarly, we studied the different interoperability standards like HL7, both version 2, version 3. Those were referred. And the CCD, which is the continuity of care document architecture, that was referred. STMX is the interoperability standard for exchanging the aggregated data. That was consulted. And all these, based on the learning of all these different standards, the recommendations were provided in the committee report. So yeah, next slide. So this was the output of the committee. After a long deliberation of more than 4 or 5 months work, this was the final output delivered by the committee. So it had, report published in 4 parts along with some annexure reports. The first part was the overview report, which laid down the broad design principles, the semantic theory, and the application of the semantic theory in health domain, to identify the domain level entities, and within the entities, the different data elements. I will talk about it, and how the different kind of interoperabilities were managed. For example, the semantic interoperability was handled by the list of the common data elements which were published in the report, particularly in the part 2 and part 3. Part 3, it defined all the code directories related to the health domain. Part 2, it had a list of more than 1,000 data elements. For each data element, it identified the day, data type, size, and the list of acceptable values that data element can have if it is a multi-valued data element. And in the code directories, we defined all the different code directories with values populated from different international standards, or so there were more than 141 code directories. And then in the annexures, the mechanism was published, like how you can take the data sets out of these different data elements. So these are 1,000+ data elements, but you can make your data sets as per your application requirement, or your exchange requirement, data exchange requirement. So how data sets could be formed, and there were specific examples given in terms of how HMIS and MCTS applications could exchange these data sets together. So all these examples are available in the annexure report, and I will request all of you to refer these different documents which are available in public domain by the Ministry of Health. So you may refer all this in detail. Yeah, next slide. So some of the things I've already mentioned, these are the building blocks of health MDDS domain. So broadly, the entire conceptual domain of health was classified into 39 entities. So entities are the logical grouping of data elements according to their purpose. For example, there is a patient entity, and patient entity will have all the data elements which are related to the different attributes to identify the patient. So for example, his first name, last name, age, gender, and those things. Similarly, there can be entity like pharmacy order. So it will contain all the attributes to identify the pharmacy order, like the order ID, order code, order description, order date, order time. So based on that, the entire analysis of the healthcare domain was done. So that is a primer to the domain-driven analysis of health domain based on the different use cases. And now, since we are talking about use of microservices, and I will cover it more in the next session. So microservices require a domain-driven analysis of health domain. So you may refer to these different entities, how these are kind of modeled, and that will provide you basically the direction and that will support you in terms of developing the different domain-driven services as well. How you can contain these entities, how you can group these entities together in different services, which we call as microservices. So that will help you a lot in domain-driven analysis of health domain. So based on that, 39 entities were identified, and 1,077 data elements were identified. And these data elements were classified either as a single value data elements, which were around 735 in number, or data elements which could be multiple, which could have multiple values. For example, gender code. So gender code could have values like M, F, or T. M for male, F for female, or T for transgender. So that actually require a value list. And similarly, if you see the order priority, so order priority could be urgent, could be normal. So those different values could come from a list of values. We call it as value list. And then there could be certain data elements like ICD diagnosis code. So diagnosis code, it will require a value to be populated from ICD-10 code directory. And ICD-10 code directory comes around with 75,000 plus different ICD codes. So we defined basically the 141 code directories for the same purpose, and we grouped all the different values under the specified code directories, which were around 141 in numbers. So that primarily you may say as the first level or the first version of the health data dictionary for the country. And this is basically, I would say, this is the evolving standard, and more domain-specific attributes and the entities could be identified in the coming time. And the MDDS committee recommended a way of updating and upgrading the different standards and how these different registries could be updated and published to the stakeholders. So primarily this report, when you will refer the MDDS report, you will come across the metadata of all these different data elements, 1077 plus data elements and 141 code directories. Similarly, the report also talks about the interoperability standards. And basically, this report first time talked about HIE in the country, Health Information Exchange, and lot of guidelines which were written in the report. The committee report is a precursor work of what NDHM has recommended in the National Digital Health Blueprint document. So a lot of learning has been taken from there. It talks about registries, it talks about identifiers, it talks about the various ways in which interoperability can be done. It talks about the semantic metadata. So that is basically a very deep, highly specialized document. And I will request each and every person who is developing their applications to refer to that and get all the relevant standards out of that. It also gives a reference architecture for the interoperability. Yeah, next slide. So this slide basically talks about the design model that was adopted in developing the metadata standards of different applications. So primarily this 1077 data elements, the set of these data elements we call as the common data elements. And all these common data elements has been designed based on the global ISO standard, we call it 11179 or 11179, I call it. So this is the ISO standard which was followed in designing the metadata of all these different data elements. And this standard is a result of following the broad principles of semantic theory, which combined with the basic principles of data modeling gives you the idea about the conceptual domain of the health, and it gives all the entities recognition within the conceptual domain and all the different objects and the attributes and the different value domains. So I will talk about all these things. So fundamentally, the semantic theory part, as I said, it followed two principles from the ISO 11179. It followed two principles there. The first principle is the thesaurus type relation between a wider concept and a more specific concept. So that helped to identify the committee, the different data elements within the entity. So for example, the wider concept order has a relationship with a similar, more specific concept called pharmacy order or immunization order. So order can be pharmacy order can be referral order can be immunization order. So all these, relation between a more generic order entity to a more specific pharmacy order entity, that is called a thesaurus type of relationship. And based on that relationship, we identified the different entities as part of this CDE list, common data element list. So pharmacy order is one entity there, immunization order is another entity in the MDDS. The second principle from semantic theory, what committee followed was the relation between a concept and its representation. Because a single concept can have a different synonyms and more closely related keywords that can convey the same concept. So for example, the number of times the drug or medication has to be given at what interval is one concept. But you may refer this as a frequency of drug, or you may refer it as a frequency of medication, but both are same thing. So you may call the frequency of medication and frequency of drug, both are the different representation of the same concept. So we took, so basically the committee took into consideration all these different synonyms and the different representations and identified the different concepts. So ultimately, as you can see, the entire conceptual domain, that two particular things were identified in that. One was the concept and the other was the value domain. So value domain is the list of possible values which a particular concept can have. For example, if the concept is frequency of medication, then list of possible values can have BID, TID, QID, and so on. Twice this thing, twice frequency, twice a day, thrice a day, so on. Right? So if you make a combination of concept and value domain, so it is like a mathematical formula. So concept plus value domain is called a data element. So that is the formula which comes out from the different ISO standard. This ISO 11179 specifically talks about how you can identify the different concepts, how you can identify the different value domains, how you can identify the different ways of registering these concepts and the value domains in the metadata registry, how you can publish this metadata registry, and so on. So this committee followed the same standard. And then from an object-oriented paradigm also, it identified, because there are a lot of people who think in an object-oriented design thinking way. So from their perspective, they need to identify all the objects within the domain, and what are the possible attributes an object can have. For example, patient is an object. So patient object is an instantiation of patient class. And within that, you may identify what are the different attributes part of this object. So patient name can be one attribute, patient gender can be another attribute, patient date of birth is another attribute. So if you make a combination of object class and the attribute, that give you the concept. So for example, medication order is a object class, and there is a attribute frequency in that class. Medication order frequency is one concept. So this is a way to recognize the different concepts in the domain, and then you identify what are the list of possible values that this concept can have. Most of the concepts will have the single value only. So we call it a single data element. But as I said, some of the concept can have the values from a list, basically. We call it a value list. So as in this particular example, the frequency of medication will have these values, BID, TID, as we discussed. And if you make the combination of two, concept and value domain, that give you the data element actually. So this way, you can analyze any given domain, and within that domain, you can identify all the concepts and all the value domains, and you can get all the data elements out. The next task the committee did is, for each data element, it published a standard data metadata, like what should be the length of this data element, what should be the size of this data element, whether it is string or whether it is numeric or it's an integer. So basically, or it's a float. So all these different data types were identified. And it also identified like who is the organization who will be maintaining this data element version, and basically when this metadata was published, when this metadata was changed. So all these things. So ultimately, if you refer the MDDS report, you will find a detailed metadata for each and every data element of 1077 plus. And as I said, it is an evolving document, so more elements will come in time. And that is the health data dictionary part of the country, which different health IT vendors can use to develop their new systems. Or there are different implementation approaches where you can use the translator layers to convert your existing data model into MDDS formats before you are exchanging the data to other systems, because you need to take care of the semantic problem. That is more important. So basically, all the e-object thing that we will talk about, that takes care of all the data type, size, format, everything taken from the MDDS. Or like FHIR has the different, so I will also cover this in the next topic. So FHIR, it has a lot of value sets which are published by the vanilla FHIR version. But in an India requirement, you may need a lot of more value sets which are specific to Indian requirement. So that all value set work can be taken from the MDDS report, and that can be incorporated into the FHIR profile. So that will become a India-specific FHIR profile for the country. Yeah. Next slide. This is another example. I think the same way in the conceptual domain, we had another entity called facility. So nowadays, you might be aware, like NDHM has published a national facility registry design, and it has given a lot of data elements and domain things in that, like what are the different facility domains, and within that, what are the different data elements that are there. So already this work has been done in the MDDS report, and a lot of things I believe they have taken from the same. So facility, if you see, like the object class is facility, and there are different attributes related to it. So facility status is one attribute. So facility status, is one concept within that entity. And if you see this particular concept can be a single valued or multi-value, it will be a multi-value, because facility status can be functional, can be non-functional, closed, or facilities under repair, or you can also put like a facility is temporary or facility is sort of verified. So all these different list of values can be there. And if you make the combination of concept and the list of values, that actually give you data element. So facility operational status is one data element which comes out. So this is the mechanism how you can get all the minimum data elements of any domain entity. Yeah. Next slide, please. So I think nothing new in that. I have already covered it. The only thing is here, the concept is health condition code, and the values that it can have is not a very small set of values. So we don't call it as a value list. It comes from the ICD-10 code directory, because there can be more than 75,000 codes. So this entire 75,000 code itself is being presented as a table kind of representation. We call it as a code directory table. And this code directory is working the same way like your value list was doing for the earlier concepts that we discussed. So your value domain can have either the value list or it can have a code directory thing. So already 141 code directories exist in MDDS, as I said. Yeah. So data element is a combination of health condition code plus the particular value, what it is getting. So it can be pulmonary or tuberculosis. So some examples are given. Next slide. Can you move to next slide, please? Yeah. So ultimately, this was the mandate which committee had. So the primary purpose of developing this metadata model was to identify the common or minimum data elements and to define the metadata of all these different elements in the health domain. And this is a very challenging task also, because if you see, the health domain is very complex. The minimum data needs of primary care setting is not same as that of a secondary and tertiary care setting. So the committee members, they identified all these different variations, and they did a lot of brainstorming and a lot of due diligence they did to identify all the specific data elements that can constitute the universe of minimum data elements that cater to all the different levels of care setting in the country, be it primary, be it secondary, or those things. And once this 1077 data element list is available, then any organization can develop a program specific data sets out of that. And data sets are basically infinite. You can develop any set of data set. A malaria program want to develop a data set for their data exchange, they can take the data element which are specific to their data transfer needs, and they can make one data set. So data set we also call as a e object. So you can populate as many e objects out of that based on your requirements. So primary data set design is not the work which committee did. This was left to the user, because there is a infinite possibilities in which way the data sets can be defined. They only define the minimum data set universe, and the rest the application users or the different vendors could develop their own data sets. Yeah. Next slide. Yeah, these are again the same thing. So these are some of the examples out of the 39 entities. Some of the entities are shown in this table. So generic entities are primarily important here, because there was one particular category called generic was kept in all the different ministries and all the different committees which were formed under the different ministries of the e-governance. And the reason was, there were some data elements which are overlapping, which could be used across the domains. And all these data elements, if let us say if one committee had defined the standard of that, the other committees were simply following the same data element standard. They were not developing it again and again. For example, date and time. So date and time is a kind of entity which is used across the applications, across the domains. It can be used in police system also, it can be used in passport application also, it can be used in health domain also. So this generic committee was developing all these common elements which are across the different domains. So there were, and each committee was given the responsibility to also identify the potential data elements which could be the candidate of this generic committee also. So health domain committee identified around 35 data elements which could be the potential generic element. It could be adopted by the generic committee, and this could be used across the different application domains. Then the other entities were more healthcare specific, like person, patient, employee, provider, all these, different entities there. And in this particular table, a statistics kind of detail is given, like each entity, how many elements were identified. So, for example, facility entity, there were 32 data elements what were identified. And besides data elements, also the committee identified the relevant code directories, which were applicable to these data elements in the value. Yeah. Next slide. This is another example, like within each entity, how the different data elements were represented. So one way you may look at it is like it gives, I mean, if somebody is a DBA or, database architect, he will think like it is like a table kind of design. I mean, the entity or the table is diagnosis here, and all these different data elements are related to that table. Or if somebody is object oriented, architect or designer, he will think like diagnosis is a class, and all these are the different attributes or object attributes of that class. Health condition type, health condition name, all are these different attributes. The additional thing what committee had done is it had given a numeric identifier to, string identifier to each data element, so that it could be unambiguously identified across the domains. So like, for example, diagnosis priority, it has a number called 05.020.0006. So if you are sending the data to some other application, so you may also choose to send a kind of OWL kind of representation, where you simply refer this entity with this numeric identifier. For example, instead of saying it a diagnosis priority, it could be mentioned as 05.020.0006. And if the other application is also holding this data dictionary or is maintaining the data dictionary, they will easily identify this particular identifier belongs to diagnosis priority type. So whatever way the different applications are representing diagnosis priority data element, but if they map their internal application data elements with the identifiers of MDDS, they can unambiguously exchange their data. Instead of kind of referring, for example, I give you one example, like one particular application is using the word called gender. The other application is using the word called sex, for example. So both application may have the different labels, but if they choose mapping between MDDS identifier with their respective data element labels, so then there will be no confusion between the two applications. Each application will know if they are saying, I'm sending you the data for 05.020.0006, they will mean it is a diagnosis priority. And the value which is coming from the value list which is assigned to the diagnosis priority. So that was the whole object. And if you see the SNOMED, SNOMED design also has a similar concept. SNOMED, there are different concepts, there are different representations of the concepts, and then each concept is assigned a unique identifier. So to a larger extent, this entire MDDS code directory, entire MDDS universe can be modeled as a SNOMED, and in the similar way you can use. Yeah. Next slide. Yeah, so basically, as I said in the beginning, a lot of international studies were done by the committee to refer the various data dictionaries work which were done by international countries. So, for example, Australia has published Meteor as a health data dictionary. So within that, and this is a published PDF format, which they have published the data dictionary. It's not necessary that you need to maintain a registry or you need to maintain an electronic database, hosting their data dictionary. There can be different ways of publishing it. Australia Meteor, they choose as a PDF file, and within the PDF file, they publish the metadata of all the different concepts related to health domain, which is used in their country. We call it a Meteor work. But the only difference is in Meteor, what they did is, even within the code directory, you may have multiple values. Each value they considered as a different data element. So they did not have a concept of code directory. So for example, if there are 75,000 data elements in ICD-10 code directory, so each ICD-10 code is basically one data element. So each ICD-10 can have one particular value. So you can say like it is one type of data element within that entity. So what they did is, out this 75,000 data elements of ICD-10 code directory, instead of publishing it as a table, they considered it as a discrete data elements. So their list was very big. So their list was more than lakhs and all, because 75,000 code, if you make each and everything as a data element, that means your list will become very huge. But MDDS consciously decided to push this entire complexity to the code directory level. So instead of publishing a mammoth MDDS kind of document, where you consider, if you take SNOMED, there are more than 3 lakh identifiers there. So your code directory will, your data dictionary will become so huge to maintain. So from that perspective, MDDS committee decided to group together all these similar concept values within the code directories. And all these code directories constitute around 141 code directories are there. And within the code directories also, there are the data elements for which the standard metadata has been published. Like, for example, if you say diagnosis code, so diagnosis code is one data element, and for that a metadata has been published. Similarly, if you say diagnosis description, this is another data element, and for that also the metadata has been published. But they have not done it at the value level. So they are not saying like if value is pneumonia, they will be publishing it as a separate data element. This they have not done. This is grouped in the code directory level itself, and that is more neat and elegant way of keeping your code directory compact in size and easily maintainable, and you can publish it to the vendor. They can easily understand this whole concept. So this code directory concept was something very new to India, which was not used by the international countries like Australia or other countries. But yes, most of the concepts related to defining the conceptual model or the concepts and the entities, this has been taken from an international standard, ISO 11179, and this is widely used by many other international countries also when they were publishing their health data dictionary. Yeah. Next page. So up to now, I spoke about the metadata standards, the different entities, data elements, and their size, type, and the metadata formats, which MDDS committee published, and the different code directories. The other work taken up by the committee was to identify all the relevant identifiers in the country. So I think if you refer the work in the public domain available on the identifier, so MDDS is, I think, is the beginning of that. But all we are studying in the NDHM level now, most of that work is available in MDDS committee report. Already in 2012, it was there. So if you see the identity management, so why identity management was required? Because identity management is a major gap in healthcare in terms of identification and authentication of the various entities of the users. So it is currently, this identification and authentication is uncontrolled, and it is not standardized across the medical systems, and there are different reasons for that. There are myriad of systems on the market today, and each system has its own method of handling the provider or facilities or patient identification, and very little attention has been done to the data privacy and security controls there. So many systems still exist today which are relying on simple username and passwords to identify and control access, and some applications have implemented strong multi-factor authentication mechanisms for the authentication thing. But then this lead to a condition where one single individual is identified by many different identifiers without these numbers referring to each other. And same way, if you see the hospital, if we go to get registration done by different hospitals, each hospital is generating their local hospital level identifier. And if you go out of that hospital and you go to another hospital, that local identifier has no sense and no context in the other application, because there is no common identifier there. So from that perspective, and to solve the problem of identity management, the committee recommended a lot of standards there. It realized that it was critical to implement and to recommend a set of standards for identifying the different entities like facility or the medical providers or the patient, and all other entities like health workers who are handling the healthcare data, so that information across different locations can be exchanged easily and securely. And this condition was the, I think, minimum requirement to have a data exchange model existing in the country. So if you see the identifier concept in the health domain, so you can see a lot of identifiers are there, which committee report recommended. It talked about facility identifiers. So facility identifiers, different models were recommended. That time, a 12-digit facility identifier was recommended. And along with the facility identifier, a global unique ID, GUID, was recommended, which could uniquely identify the facility at a database level. Similarly, different other identifiers were identified here. For example, yeah. So one more thing I want to add here. This identifier could be, any data type. It can be a number, it can be image, because if you see a lot of applications are using barcodes or QR codes, even that comes in the category of identifier. And then biometrics also come in the category of identifier. Aadhaar is capturing a lot of Aadhaar registry is capturing a lot of biometric identifiers for the person, which is fingerprint or retinal scan. Then you have the RFID. So in the Internet of Thing model, RFID plays a very important role. Each and every medical device can have RFID identifier, or a smart card. A person can have a smart card which have all the offline storage of his EMR records, and there can be a combination of these which can act as a identifier. So considering this fact that none of these identifiers existed in the public health space, so what MDDS committee did, it brought the concept of alternate identifier. So if you study the MDDS, different facility registry or different registry design, it has a concept of alternate identifier, where any application can choose any of these different type of identifiers to uniquely identify the different entities. It can be a numeric value, it can be a code, it can be a RFID, or it can be a digital. And if you see the recent facility registry design document, which has been published by the ministry, NHA, for the public consultations, a lot of this attribute level thing you can find in the MDDS committee report work already done there. Yeah. And besides this facility identifier, there were other identifiers like you had provider identifier, which comes from a Digi Doctor registry. Nowadays, NHA is proposing a Digi Doctor registry for all the doctors and providing a unique identifier to that. And similarly, people identifiers, this MDDS committee recommended a people identifier where each patient could be identified. We call it patient or beneficiary. So each patient or beneficiary could have a unique identifier that comes from a patient registry or a client registry or a master person index or a beneficiary registry. You may call it in a multiple ways, but these are the different registries that are required. So you need a master person index registry to have a unique UHID of the patient, unique health ID. You will require a Digi Doctor registry to have a unique provider level identifier. You need a a health personal registry, which is a source of all the unique identifier for all the health workers and the different paramedicals or the different individuals involved in that. So these different registries are required, and the MDDS committee provided the model for these different registries. It provided a very detailed data model design of facility registry that time. It identified 7 code directories very specific to facility registry at that time. So MDDS has a lot of work done in BAC, which current MDHM is sort of bringing in their work. And besides all these entity level identifiers, there are identifiers like disease registry identifiers. So each procedure and service should be uniquely identified by a standard code. So like all the diagnosis codes, the committee recommended ICD-10 as a standard. Nowadays, ICD-11 is also coming, but that committee report was published in 2012. That time, ICD-10 was recommended. And then the different procedure codes identifiers. So like, for example, CCI code. That time, the mandate was to recommend the open source codes as far as possible. And, then the different, codes like ICD-CM, that is more proprietary in nature. So the committee recommended the open source, standards as far as possible, and from that perspective, CCI code, Canadian classification, identifiers. So basically, that was recommended for the procedures. Nowadays, the insurance group, which is developing the insurance work. So we have recommended there the IRDA codes basically for all the different procedures. And similarly, they recommended the output identifiers should come from WHO morbidity and mortality list, and the different clinical event level identifiers like episode identifier, encounter identifier. So this committee report described the metadata of all these, how these identifiers should be defined, what should be the right metadata, so that there is a congruence of the data, when you are exchanging the data sets across the different applications. Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, so as I said, this was the design of the facility identity management, which was recommended in the MDDS committee report. And as you can see, one, it defined the basic information about the facility, which included the facility name, facility code, a unique facility identification number, a global unique identifier, type of facility. Type of facility was a value list. You can have different types here. Subcenter can be one type, primary, community health center can be another, district hospital can be another, railway hospital can be another. So these are the different type of facilities. Then address of the facility and longitude, latitude for capturing the geolocation of the different facilities. And then all other different things like operational status, referral facility, it's in rural area or urban area. So it's a very exhaustive list of data design which was given for different facilities, including health facility. It also identified the different domains within the facility registry, as for example, all these different services related to the facility, all the services which are delivered in the facility, that comes under the facility service design. And it recommended like facility service master as one of the code directory, and facility system of medicine. So it can be allopathy, it can be this thing homeopathy. So different system of medicine things were recommended. And if you see the current NHA facility registry design, so most of the data elements are the similar type that has been taken from the committee report itself. Similarly, there is a facility infrastructure domain. It talks about the different beds and the different other capacity equipments and others which are available in the hospital in that facility. So it's a very extensive design was published in the committee report, and a centralized model was recommended in the committee for publishing all these different national level registries. And NDHM has also accepted the same recommendation, and in NDHM blueprint also they have recommended a centralized deployment model for all these national level registries like facilities or busy doctor or health worker registry. So those different registries will be centrally deployed. So you can see a lot of work is being taken from MDDS thing. It's not just about the list of data elements and all. It talks about identifiers, it talks about registry design, it talks about interoperability, it talks about the list of data elements and all. Yeah. Next slide. Yeah. Next slide. I think we have covered most of that. Yeah. So now I will talk about the second level of interoperability here. So up to now we were talking about semantic interoperability thing. Why identifiers are needed to uniquely identify the identity? Why the metadata is required to uniquely identify the context of that data? The metadata basically defines the context of that data, so that you can have a common meaning of data across the different applications. So up to now, whatever work we talked about, it covered the semantic part of the interoperability. Now I will speak about synthetic part of the interoperability. Next slide. So you may see the three different interoperability models were suggested in the MDDS committee report that time. And we also so the committee also recommended the pros and cons of each of the approach. So the most common approach, if you see today, is the point-to-point integration. This is still happening from the way back in the past till now. Most of the hospitals, they are connecting with other entities through point-to-point integration only. I think this is a very sad state, I would say, but this is the reality. So in the point-to-point integration, what it does is, each and every application already knows like what are the other applications it need to get the integration with. For example, if there is a EMR application, and it need to integrate with a lab. So it already knows these are the 3 or 4 labs I need to get the integration of my lab orders and the results. So based on that, previous existing knowledge of the different trading partners who want to integrate their applications together, so they do a point-to-point mapping of their master tables. So there is a kind of translation tables are defined, where they map their master data with the other application data. So for example, if one application is using some billing codes, or for example, some custom application specific lab codes, and the other application is using Loin code for their lab orders. So they do a custom mapping between that application specific code and the Loin code, and that mapping table exists in the runtime layer. And whenever data is exchanged from one application to other using some kind of format, it can be HL7 version 2, or it can be simple web service, or it can be a REST service. So different transport mechanisms are being used for exchanging this data across the application. And whenever they want to send their data, they are kind of transforming their metadata, master data, into that application specific format to which they are sending the data. And this is required because other application will not understand the local codes which one application is maintaining, but other application is not maintaining that. So they will maintain a master table, a mapping table, to get a meaning of that. So from that perspective, the challenge was to define all these mappings and transformations, application to application, pair level. And that actually, give to a state where you have a spaghetti of different applications connecting together. You can see this diagram on the side. So one of the use of this application, this model is basically it is rather easy to solve. No international or no national level standard is involved in that. Only you need to have an agreement between two applications, or whatever application you want to exchange the data, or all these different old historical applications, that is still using the same point-to-point integration model. And basically here one application receive message from another application, another pre-known application, and then as I said, a lot of your extra time effort is spent in defining the transformation logic for each application. These are the different cons of that. So ultimately, if you have n number of applications you are kind of integrating together, then you need n multiplied by n minus 1 divided by 2. So many pairs of integration efforts would be required, where you are defining the transformation logic, maintaining those transformation layers, and so on. So that is practically not possible for a national level interoperability, for sure. Yeah. Next slide. So as you can see, the second model which committee recommended was a broker-based model, broker-based integration. So this broker is a dumb broker, basically, I would say. It's a non-intelligent broker. So as you can see, this is still used in a lot of enterprise level application integrations. It's a enterprise service bus level integration model, where you have different adapter layers, and using adapters you can integrate to the applications, and you can receive data in different formats. You will have file adapter, you will have a web service SOAP adapter, you have REST adapter, HTTP adapter. So different adapters are there. You can use these adapters to receive messages from different applications. Then within the ESB layer, you define all the data transformation logic, or the data routing, the message routing logic. So message transformation, message routing, those things are taken care by the ESB layers. And then so sort of based on the message routing, you already know this is a predefined routing. This particular message which is coming from source A, it need to be routed to destination B. So that information already pre-exists. You already know where from you will get the data and where to you need to send that data. So in that way, you can only integrate a finite set of disparate applications, and you have to define the routing, because there is no dynamic runtime lookup based on registries available to discover the different locations where you will send the data or you will receive the data. So ultimately, it's a non-intelligent broker, and you need to predefine all these different routing paths within the ESB layer to identify the source and the destination. So this is one of the major cons of this. because data discovery at runtime is not there. And so ultimately it gives rise to a very highly complex architecture, which is difficult to maintain as your applications increases, which you need to integrate. The other important aspect which I want to mention here is, in the broker model, if you want to get a reporting, if you want to generate a report on demand from a broker based model, that is not possible, because you need a centralized warehouse to get the reporting, to get all the data. And from that perspective, centralize the data warehouse. We already know if we are implementing this broker-based design at a state level, a state of the size of UP or Bihar, this is practically not possible to have a centralized data warehouse where you can maintain all the data for reporting ultimately. So you need the federated design for the data warehouses rather than a centralized design. So one another example I want to mention, for example, eOSHD application, which is designed by the CDAC. So that is used by the states for the drug distribution and all these different drug procurement related things. So if drug distribution related data is spread across 3 different eOSHD applications, and if we are using this non-intelligent broker model, so there is a challenge to access the data from these 3 systems. So this challenge, if we want to resolve it, then we have to have the logic of integration and data retrieval from all these 3 applications, primarily defined in the design level, in the compile time level. We should know the routing paths we need to define. Okay, this application I will get the data, this application I need to send that data. So my source and target pairs I need to define in the design time. Then what will be the different message formats, whether I will get data in file format or whether I will get it in the web service format. I will primarily know that. And then, I will be ultimately doing certain mappings, internal mappings. Because if the master data which is maintained by 3 applications are different, then you need to define the different mappings also. So ultimately, this data need and integrating logic is not, is something you have to define at a design level rather than at a runtime level. And since if you have to go at a national level interoperability, then your data need and the logic integration cannot be static in nature in any context. So you have, because that will give rise to a lot of maintainability and feasibility issue. You should have a runtime mechanism of discovering the data sources and data targets. You should have a mechanism of mapping all the data to a intermediate layer based on MDDS or something at a runtime, rather than you are manually defining that. Or you should define it one time in a design, and then it should take care. So that runtime thing is not possible. And the third model is actually the HI model, which talks about this. So I will not talk in detail about HI in this session, because already we have a separate session planned for HI. So I will talk more. But all I can say is that this health information exchange or HI model is a concept of intelligent broker, a registry-based architecture pattern, which is the most widely used across in the global countries. And this approach allows you to dynamically locate the data records and the application locations. So ultimately, this will allow the applications to serve the requested data in more optimal way. And also, this model allows connecting all these different applications throughout an array of heterogeneous applications, removing the need for any complex point-to-point connectivity. So you have registries like document registry or document repositories. So that actually sort of help you for all this, runtime discovery of the data location, record locator service. So I will cover this aspect in detail, when HI session will come. Yeah. Next slide. Next slide. So these 3 integration models are exactly like there's a visual comparison here. If you see the old time of telecom, you used to have a hotline model of making the calls. It was a phone-to-phone integration. So that is similar to your point-to-point integration. It's like a hotline. Even nowadays, if you see the premiers of the nation, like prime ministers and presidents, they give a hotline call to each other. So this is like point-to-point. Our prime minister will make a direct hotline call to US president. But that model has now gone. We already know we have the mobiles. Then then came the time when you had operator based exchange. So if you need to make a ISD, a trunk call or STD call, you first used to make a request to the operator, and the operator would manually connect your call from one state to another in the STD call case. So that is similar to the broker model, what I told. This is a non-intelligent broker model. And nowadays you have the modern telecoms where you just connect a call to your friend sitting somewhere in Bangalore, and I'm making the call from Delhi, and this call will automatically in the runtime route from the source tower to the destination tower using the different registries which are maintained by the telecom exchanges. So that is closer to the health information exchange model, what I was talking about. So this NDHM has recommended the HIE as very important component, and as I said, I will talk more about it in later session. Please, next slide. So the third level of interoperability is institutional interoperability, and yeah, next slide. So institutional interoperability actually defines the rules and the guidelines on the way how data can be collected, how data should be reported, what will be the pattern of data exchange, how the aggregation thing will be done, and what will be the different context in which data will be used. So if you see, like that time, MDDS committee recommended the creation of NEHA, National Electronic Health Authority. So basically, that is the precursor of NDHM today. So NDHM is basically the authority that is issuing all the, basically they have issued the guidelines, and they have issued the format of the data exchanges, FHIR. They have issued the different interoperability patterns. So all this is part of the NDHM guideline. And you may imagine that this creation of NDHM was recommended way back in 2012 by DITI and the MDDS committee. So that is an institutional interoperability, because you need an interoperability layer which make the different organizations agreeing together on the format of the data to be exchanged, the mechanism of the data to be exchanged, what are the different standards that will be followed in data exchange, what are the different data indicators that will be used. So a dialogue between the organizations and a consensus between the organizations is required. So NDHM is actually playing that role today. Yeah. Next slide. And then even for the standards, we need a standard development organization which maintain the follow up and the rollout of the different standards. As I said, okay, this list of 1077 data element is not exhaustive list. It is an ever evolving list basically. So more and more data elements will be added in that, and the data dictionary is actually ever evolving. So when insurance thing will come, so that will add with more data elements from the insurance domain. Similarly, when the epidemiology thing will come, so more and more reporting related data elements will be added. So this is ever evolving. So then some organization will take the responsibility of ensuring the updation and upgradation of all these different standards, data dictionaries, ensuring the compliance of these standards, then how the different private sector entities can adopt these standards. So it can be, basically it will be voluntary based as NDHM policy is. So it can be voluntary, driven by the advantages or ease of doing it. And then in public sector, it can be driven by the financing conditionality or need for sharing information. So ultimately, there are different levers existing for adoption of these standards. So financial lever is one, because now everything government is talking about universal health coverage, and more, insurance part will increase, insurance coverage will increase. So that will act as a financial lever for the different entities to adopt, because their claims will be settled faster if they are adopting the different standards. And epidemiology lever can be another one, because we are currently witnessing the COVID and the impact that has gone to the entire national economy has gone to a toss. So no government can afford that kind of loss of human lives or loss of the national economy, and they have to follow the standards. They have to ensure that data exchange is happening. They have to ensure they are getting the real-time reporting of the different national level events. For example, the COVID patients, what treatment they are giving, how they can do the resource planning. So all that thing is now not a choice. That is a need. That is a must. So ultimately, some authority is required who can ensure that all these standards come in, organizations are following it, and take the advantage of the different levers to ensure the adoption of these standards by the different entities. And definitely, NDHM is going to play that role. And then, one entity has to be there which ensure the compliance and the accreditation of the organizations based on their adoption of the standards, how they have implemented all these different standards, what are the different, sort of a stamp of confidence thing. Whether they have adopted all the standards, whether they have adopted only partial standard. It doesn't matter, whether they adopt this standard or that standard, but they have to adopt the standard in a piecemeal manner. And some testing authority like STQC, for example, they have to ensure the testing of all these different application developed by different vendors and ensure the compliance of these steps. So all these are part of the institutional framework, and most of that was already defined in the MDDS committee. Next slide. Yeah, so I think I've already spoken about that. Next slide. Yeah, next slide. So basically, this is the institutional framework which MDDS committee report recommended. That was the NEHA structure, and this is more closer to the NDHM structure now. So a lot of institutionalization of NDHM is based on the MDDS committee work, and the experts sitting in that committee had already made the vision, of all these things which are happening today. So around 8 years back or 9 years back. So that is the importance of this report, and I request all of you to please go through it, because that will give you a lot of visibility on the current work which is happening in digital health domain in the country, and make your understanding more richer. Yeah. Next slide. Yeah. Next slide. So all I will say ki MDDS is not just a matter of choice to adopt. It is it's a need. Basically, you need to adopt the MDDS standards to standardize your data models. You need to adopt the containers of or the packets of your data sets which you're exchanging with other applications. We call it e-objects. So you need to bring it everything. And sooner a day will come when all these different hospitals or in private sector and public sector will have all these standards implemented, not as a matter of voluntariness or choice, but as a matter of necessity. Because if they have to survive in the market, they have to adopt this. Yeah. So thank you so much. That was a presentation from my side. If you have any question, we can discuss.
Thank you, Krishan, for sharing your knowledge with us. Dr. Pankaj, anything you would like to add today?
No, nothing really. I think it's been pretty well covered. So, MDDS, as Krishan said, was a precursor to a lot of other um, standardization efforts that have happened. And after MDDS was notified, it forms part of the mighty open standards and the mighty open source software, which has again been mandated from the parliament, and the Minister of Health has made a statement in the parliament that mighty open standards have to be followed. So this is the first part of it. It gives the how in terms of all the standards have to be implemented, and the architecture is in the NDHB, so which will be seen in the subsequent lecture.
Thank you, Dr. Pankaj. We can close our live session now and join the Meet link, and there we can have any question answers anybody want to ask for. So thank you. Please join the Meet link.
Thank you.